Rust floor stack bases are one of the most underrated designs in 2025. You can double your top-down raid cost and make your bases significantly stronger. In this video, I'll show you how to build my newest floor stack design, the Overpass. It's an affordable yet super strong trio base that will not only impress your neighbors, but also deter them from raiding you offline just because of how strong this thing looks. Using the floor stack, I've incorporated 4 bunkered loot rooms and a bunkered core. And lastly, I created a floor stack method that completely negates freehand placements. In fact, it works so well that you can even build this base on console Rust. So let me give you a tour and you can decide if you're ready to level up your building in your next wipe. Now, as you can see, the door path leads up to the 2nd floor. And up here we have windows on both sides to check for any PvP chads who are sitting outside. Now you'll want to stick around and see the open living area of the 2nd floor, but for now, upstairs to the roof using this furnace. Plus, on our way up, check out this awesome head glitch going all the way down to your front door. Now there's a lot going on up here and I'll try to explain it as simply as possible, but just take a look at these floor stack peaks, which make them great for long and medium range fights, and for close range you have these wide gap floor stack peaks, and there's 6 of those surrounding the base on every side as well. There's tons of other windows for you to use, and a vending machine hidden behind the garage door up here. Above the vending machine, you'll notice we have a turret on every side of the base, and these things are super well hidden, making them exceptionally hard to break. And lastly, you can use a mixing table, stone barricade, or a furnace to jump up to these top roof peaks. But honestly, the roof floor is just a complement to the inside of this base, which makes it so hard to offline. Here's the open living area of your 2nd floor. As you can see, on either side we have a loot room, and the bottom boxes are actually bunkered behind this horizontal embrasure. So if a raider does get in your core and doesn't have TC access, they're gonna have to spend another 4 rockets on each side just to get those 2 bottom boxes. Now let's spawn downstairs in one of our 3 sleeping bags, and I'll show you the main bunker to the core, and you can also see the 2 more loot room bunkers we have on either side. The TC is of course hidden behind the tier 3 workbench, and it can be swapped out for a vending machine bunker if you prefer. Now, I made sure the bunker twig was super secure and is actually behind this window frame in your loot room. Of course, because the base is floor stacked, it allows for some crazy bunkers like this one, and replacing it is just as easy. So now, before I show you my flawless new floor stack method, I want to ask a huge favor, and that's for 1,000 likes on this video. It would really show me you guys enjoy the content. So, once you found a nice spot to build, copy the same layout shown in the video, and I'll show you how to make a nice floor stack that works 100% of the time. And you'll notice I'm placing these small boxes on the low end side of the roof behind me. Make sure you're placing your boxes directly flush with each other and that back low wall. Once that's done, you're fully ready to floor stack, and all that's left to do is placing your first foundation while crouching pushed up against that small box. Then, while being careful not to look around or hold Alt to be safe, you move down the ramp and place in your 2nd foundation right at the bottom. And it really is that easy. The only problem you may have is if you misplace your small boxes, you might have a red foundation at the base of the ramp. But if that happens, simply replace your small boxes and try it again until both foundations are blue. Then you can upgrade both of these and it's time to build the starter base. And notice that I'm building off these foundations from the upper section of the floor stack. Also, I want to thank every one of you who's been leaving base suggestions in the comment section. I always love hearing your feedback for the bases I make and also your experience using them in the wipe. Now here, notice on this triangle that I'm placing the roof tile on the lower section of the floor stack and not the upper one. This will be important for later. And notice that all the other roof tiles are on the upper section of the floor stack. Just make sure this middle piece here is only upgraded to wood, as eventually this will be the drop down. Also, this space in between your wall frames will be your window frame, so make sure you keep this open, but we can set up the loot room inside just like this. You can also throw down a few basic deployables like a tier 1 and some sleeping bags, but I'd highly recommend upgrading straight to the next step if you can, because it'll make it so much more secure, and we're getting closer to getting that bunker set up. Once you place down these 5 foundations by your front door, head around to the back side where you have that lower foundation, and we're going to build off of it with triangles until we get our foundations into these following places. There's not really any specific pattern to doing this, just place triangles and make your way around the base until you get in between these 2 stone triangles on both sides. Then just demolish any of the extra twig that was left behind. Now, just a quick note, if you're building the base slowly, these lower floor stack foundations technically aren't connected to the base yet, so they might decay. But don't worry, if they do decay, just build back around with the twig and place them back in. So right now we're behind the base and we're going to add in some honeycomb, but it's very important that you use 2 half walls instead of a full wall here because it will help with stability for your bunker. And here you'll notice I'm sealing in the roof piece on the lower level of the floor stack for this middle triangle. Next, build up to the roof, and we're going to seal in these two triangles a little differently. The one next to your drop down will be sealed normally on the top layer of the floor stack, while the one on the other side will be first sealed on the lower layer and upgraded to metal. I know this step is tedious, but it's all about stability and very much necessary for it to work. I can already hear the comments now.
Zypic, this bunker is patched.
And the simple answer is no, floor stacking is not patched, and I will be very surprised if the devs do patch it in the future. Now back to the video, we just made a simple roof jump up next to the front door, and we're just about ready to pick out the wood, but first let's move our front door upstairs. Just use wooden window bars for now if you don't have the metal windows yet, but obviously replace those as soon as possible. Since the tier 1's a little difficult to jump on, I like to use a furnace and replace the workbench to upstairs for the time being. Also, once you've broken that twig out, make sure you replace it with a floor frame. Now that we have a proper roof entrance, we can seal off our old front door. Just remember, off that low triangle, we're going to place in 2 half walls instead of a full wall. And if you haven't already, build yourself a temporary airlock with 2 double doors swinging outwards. Remove all the downstairs double doors and replace garage doors in the middle 2 frames. You can then build in this left side loot room, which will be an exact replica of the opposite side. Now, as long as you follow the same placement I've used here in the video, you should be able to fit 3 sleeping bags in the core, no problem. Next up, upgrade the entirety of the TC pod to metal, and then on either side on the left and right, go ahead and add in a triangle on the lower level of the floor stack. And since we've sealed in the jump up to our front door, we'll add another one through the wall on the left side. This next step is where we're going to use the majority of our metal frags, and that's going to be upgrading everything in the core to metal other than the wall frames. Make sure you remember even those little things like the foundations on the back sides of the loot rooms. Once everything's upgraded, we can officially seal it in with the window frame, upgrade to metal, and flip it so it's hard side facing inward. Now, if you have an abundance of high quality metal before this step, I'd highly recommend upgrading even the backs of the loot rooms to HQM as well to further increase the raid cost. It's not necessary, but if you have the extra HQM, you might as well. And of course, if you'd rather, you can also use a half-height floor tile instead of a furnace to get up to the roof. Now let's fill in those upstairs loot rooms, and you'll notice again on the areas where I have half walls, I'm going to continue all the way up with more half walls. This will allow us to build those upstairs bunkers just like we have down below in the core. And once again, just like before, when you're sealing in these loot rooms from the top, make sure you're placing it on the lower level of the floor stack. This will also set us up for our peek downs, which we're going to add in very soon. For the next section of the base, we're going to upgrade the back side where we still have some stone walls and foundations. Now, you'll notice in between the lower floor stack foundations, we have this big gap in the middle. We're going to seal this in with a basic 3 triangle foundation honeycomb all the way up to the roof. Do this on both of the sides that are empty, and then the side with the front door we'll finish up last. If you'd prefer not to show people the inside of your base, you don't need these windows here, but I personally like to have them just as a little lookout before I leave my front door. Now, just to make the front door path a little bit stronger and harder to deep, I like to add a simple 1x1 on the front and just build in a couple double doors as an extra precaution before leaving the base. And for the last step, just honeycomb all of these half walls going up to the roof as well on every side. Just be cautious that you're placing the tops of the honeycomb on the right section of the floor stack, whether that's the upper one or the lower one. Alright, next it's time to seal in that gap that's been in our roof for probably way too long, and make sure you do this all in metal because you won't be able to access the roof pieces or the walls after you seal it in. At this point, any door that's inside the base behind the single door should be upgraded to a garage door like this. And then let's just upgrade this entire back section fully to metal, including all of the roof tiles. The reason I didn't place wall frames on these back slots is because we're going to add in some shelves to place in extra large boxes and small boxes. Now, if you are planning to add in electricity, I would recommend leaving one of these shelves out and replacing it with a large battery instead. Here's what your box placement should look like when you're finished. Then you're going to upgrade the walls to your loot rooms and make sure you flip them when you upgrade them up to metal. Before you place in anything in the loot room, you're going to start with a wall frame going through the roof just like this. It's very important for the peek down floor. And then for the other side loot room, just remember to place in the wall frame before you begin. Now at this point, we're ready to floor stack the second floor, but before this happens, we have to remove all the garage doors in this circle of triangles. And now that you're floor stacked, be very careful when replacing the garage doors into these wall frames. And that's because if you open the door without a code lock or a key lock on it, the roller will actually get stuck in the roof and you won't be able to close it again. Now for floor stacking the core, you're going to start by placing a triangle in the left side loop room just like this, and you may have difficulties upgrading it if there's a bag below your feet. So you may have to remove the bag and any box in your way, and if you crouch, it'll show up as blue. With that triangle placed in the loop room, we're almost done floor stacking the core. All that's left is to demolish the tier 3 and get into the TC room where we're going to upgrade everything to armored and also floor stack that last triangle right above your tool cupboard. Now that your TC room is floor stacked, you can place these two triangles off of it and your bunker will now work. And before you upgrade it to armor, just double check that that bunker roof tile works. If everything's done properly, it should have 6% stability. Alright, now it's time for one of the coolest parts of this base, the roof floor. Now here I'm just finishing up that loop section around the base. Anything that's on the inner side should be on the upper level of the floor stack now, so if it's missing a triangle above, just add it in. Next, head around the base till you find one of these lower sections of honeycomb, and we're going to place in a half wall, followed by a door frame on top. Then just for simplicity's sake, upgrade the top roof piece of this stone honeycomb. Then off of it, place in 2 square floor frames and 2 triangle ones off the other sections of the base. Now just go ahead and do that on the other 2 sides as well. If you want to have a vending machine incorporated in the base, place it straight out from your front door of your roof access like this. Of course, if you don't want to have it, simply just use a wall instead of the single door frame. And don't forget to add in these triangle floors on the sides that don't have your vending machine, since they're going to hold up your turrets afterwards. And once you placed all this in, just make sure that all the floors are on the upper level of the floor stack. You should have a tiny little gap. For slightly better head protection, you may want to add in some low walls on top of these window frames. Do this on every side of the base, including adding some embrasures, and then we'll go work on the top level. Personally, I like to use a mixing table to jump up, but you can add whatever you want. Feel free to customize this to make it as easy as possible for yourself. To get up to these triangles, I like to use a furnace, or you can just use something like a half wall. But when you get on top, I recommend sticking to only one side. For example, on every side of these peaks, I'm going to be placing my turret on the right, which will guarantee the highest coverage around the entire roof floor. For the rest of the wipe, use any extra metal frags you have to upgrade both layers of the stone honeycomb on the outside. And just a quick note for when you are upgrading all this honeycomb, don't forget to do the tops of it on your roof floor as well. The last recommendations I'd have would be to seal in that lower floor stacked foundation on every side, just because each side holds quite a bit of stability. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this base build. I spent a ton of time trying to perfect it, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.